Dear brothers and sisters, last week I spoke about this idea of figuring out what to do when there is so much to do, and how to actually choose a path forward and keep our priorities as the priorities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has intended for us. And I mentioned the narration of Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, when he was frustrated that a group of people that would have taken part in the murder of Al-Husayn radiallahu ta'ala anhu, spilling the blood of the grandson of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would have the audacity to speak about, whether or not the blood of a mosquito coming on the garment of one would nullify their prayer. Speaking about the idea of priority. Where are your priorities? And then once you see so much that's happening, and you can exert yourself towards causes of good in so many different directions, how do you choose which cause without becoming completely exhausted and eventually rendered idle? Now, last week we spoke about prioritizing action. This week I want to speak about another element of dealing with fitna, which is chaos, turmoil, tribulation. And that is when inaction is actually necessary. When inaction, being intentionally inactive, is actually a good thing. And where we hold ourselves back, especially when we don't know what to do. Now, this is actually a very important dimension here, that many of the narrations of the Prophet ﷺ about the end times are acted upon prematurely throughout Islamic history. So people who thought that the end of times would have been 800 years ago or 900 years ago, that's there. And so they kind of abandoned all things and didn't do anything. So prematurely acted upon some of these ahadith in their most absolute sense. And there are others that deal with these ahadith in a very inappropriate way, where they use these ahadith to introduce things that are not actually concepts in the religion. And so let's be very clear. When there is a known good to busy yourself with, then it is good to busy yourself with that known good. And when there is a known wrong to combat and to work against, then it is always good to busy yourself in working against that which is wrong. But then when there's a lot of confusion in between, and gray areas, and disinformation, and chaos, and people don't know where to go or what to do, that's where holding yourself back becomes very important in this regard. And so let's talk about this for a moment, inshallah ta'ala. Before I get to this beautiful hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he gives 3 fundamental tips that a person can act upon to really keep themselves safe when things become confusing and distracting. This hadith is one in which Abu Umama asks Abu Tha'laba radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says, this verse in the Quran, alaykum anfusakum, like worry about yourself. Worry about yourself, which is one of those statements that can be good or can be grossly misinterpreted, right? To mean abandon all others. Worry about yourself. He said, does that mean that we really should not care about society or worry about what's happening outside of ourselves and outside of our homes? How do we deal with this? And he said, I asked the Prophet ﷺ that question. And he said to me, بَلْ ائْتَمِرُوا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنَاهَوْا عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. Rather, you should enjoin good and you should forbid evil. You should not abandon the act of enjoining good, doing good things, and working against that which is not good, working against that which is not wrong. You should enjoin good, you should forbid evil. But he said after that, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, حَتَّى إِذَا رَأَيْتَ شُحًّا مُطَاعًا وَهَوًا مُتَّبَعًا وَدُنْيَا مُؤْثَرَةً وَإِعْجَابُ كُلِّ ذِي رَأْيٍ بِرَأْيِهِ فَعَلَيْكَ بِنَفْسِكَ وَدَعْ عَنْكَ الْعَوَامِ. Powerful narration. He said, until you see people reach this level, and this particular level, by the way, is an absolute level, but there are always going to be elements of these things. So he said, until you see people reach a point where shuhan muta'an means people succumb to their greed. Shuh is a very particular type of greed. It's to hold back what is due to God or due to the people around you. So holding back zakah, or not fulfilling the rights of your family, not fulfilling the rights of your society upon you, holding back your wealth, holding back what you owe to others. Because people succumb to greed, which is a potential fault or flaw in all of us. They succumb to greed. Shuhan muta'an. Or he went on to say, wahawan muttaba'an, and people follow their lusts. Now you'll always find greedy people, and you'll always find people following their lusts. But the idea that this becomes the dominant order of the world around you, that people are shameless in their stinginess, and people are openly in obedience or in worship of their lusts and of their desires. And then he said, وَدُنْيَا مُؤْثَرَةً, and you find that people prefer the life of this world to the life of the hereafter, very clearly and very openly. And the next one he said, وَإِعْجَابَ كُلِّ ذِي رَأْيٍ بِرَأْيِهِ, and every person has an opinion on everything. Everyone has an opinion on everything, and they're impressed by their own opinion. It's actually a very profound way of putting it. Everyone that could possibly have an opinion has an opinion on everything. So you have an opinion on everything from religion to science to medicine to biology to sociology. You know it all because you got something on WhatsApp that looked very compelling and you forwarded it, and you were very compelled by it and very compelling with arguing why it's true. So, there's very little dispute in the world today that there is mass disinformation. The dispute is about who's causing the mass disinformation, right? And who should be checking it, not whether or not there is mass disinformation. That's a fact at this point, right? We live in a post-truth world. But everyone that has an opinion on everything and is impressed by their own opinion. And if they have the spiritual corruption that is mentioned in the previous three categories, then their opinions are likely to follow that which gives them access to their lusts and makes them feel better about succumbing to their greed. This is the way it is, this is why we're like this, and so everyone sort of succumbs to that. So fitna in this sense makes things very, very confusing and very difficult for a person to move forward. So the Prophet ﷺ said, so at that point, عَلَيْكَ بِنَفْسِكَ, look, worry about yourself. وَدَعْ عَنْكَ الْعَوَامِ, and leave the things that people are talking about and the affairs of the people, the masses. Stick to yourself, stick to what you know you should be doing with yourself, and leave off what everybody else is doing and everybody else is thinking of and the gossip of the day. Stick to yourself. So what are the ways then that you stick to yourself, and what's a healthy way to do that? And this is the narration that I actually wanted to share with you today. It's a narration from Uqba bin Amir radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, man najah? How do you stay safe? How do you stay saved? How do you protect yourself? We see corruption on the rise. We see a lot of things that we're hearing about and we don't know what to believe and what to not believe. What do I do? Man najah. Greed is overtaking us, and the Prophet ﷺ said, I don't fear for you poverty. There's a lot of poverty in the ummah. Prophet ﷺ said, that's not my fear for you. Poverty is not the fear. In fact, riches are the fear, because riches bring with them certain corruption, global corruption. That's what I worry about for you, not the poverty part. It's the riches and the corruption that is generated as a result of that. So, Ya Rasulullah, man najah? Like, how do I protect myself? Give me some fundamentals here. And this is where the Prophet ﷺ said three things. And listen very carefully. قَالَ أَمْسِكْ عَلَيْكَ لِسَانِكَ. Hold your tongue. Learn to hold your tongue. Like, grab it and hold it, not in the physical sense, but restrain this tongue of yours. Hold yourself. Everyone that has an opinion on everything. You know what? Learn to practice some silence. Hold your tongue. Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu literally one day was walking around and he was holding his tongue and he was saying, this thing has driven me to dangerous places. Because it could be one word you say, one thing that you utter, that totally ruins the life of someone else and ruins your own afterlife, right? A word of gossip that's actually a word of slander, a word that is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, learn to hold it. Even when you're so convinced that you should be saying this, you're weighing in on something you really shouldn't be weighing in on. Learn to not weigh in. Learn to really practice silence. Amsik alayka lisanak. He's saying this to a sahabi, to a companion who's righteous and who's afraid. What about a person who doesn't have that level of taqwa, that level of God consciousness that would govern their tongue and their expression and their keyboards? Amsik alayka lisanak. Hold your tongue. And subhanAllah, one of my teachers actually said that a gem from this hadith is that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned holding on to revelation, that the way of the Messenger ﷺ, the Quran and the Sunnah, he said hold on to it with your back teeth, like someone's trying to pull it out of your mouth. And so if you open your mouth to get loose with your tongue about all the nonsense, then the divine revelation and that which is good and righteous will be taken away from you right under your eyes. But a person who's really trying to hold on, guard that which is sacred in their life. Practice silence intentionally. You don't have to weigh in on everything. You can learn to be silent, and whoever is silent is safe. This is actually a saying and a principle, a great principle in our religion. Not when there's an obvious oppression happening in front of you, right? And you say, no, I'm going to stay silent. No, you should say something. Not there, but a samt when things are not really clear. Learn to amsik alayka lisanak. Don't have an opinion when you're not sure. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَلْيَسَعْكَ بَيْتُكَ. Hard, by the way, phrase to translate. Let your home suffice you. You all are just coming out of quarantine and you're like, don't send us back home. Go home, stay home, learn to enjoy your seclusion. وَلْيَسَعْكَ بَيْتُكَ. This literally means let your home encompass you. Let your home suffice you. Like, don't, everyone wants to get out all the time. Actually, وَلْيَسَعْكَ بَيْتُكَ. let your home suffice you. Now, the scholars mention two meanings of this. There's a minor opinion and a major opinion, and they don't contradict one another. In fact, they enrich one another. The first one, some scholars said, al-ihtimam bil-ahl. Focus on your family. Focus on what's in your home. And that parallels ijtinab, leaving off the affairs of everybody else. Like, you know the saying, clean up your own house first? And often you find those that talk about everybody else's homes, the same thing's happening in their house. They're just not aware of it because you're busy talking about everybody else's business, and you're not realizing that those flaws and those diseases are actually penetrating your own home. You're losing your own children. You're losing your own house. So ihtimam, focus on your family. And indeed, that's one of the ways that we learn that those who taunt others for their sins often end up doing the same sins themselves at some point. And those who taunt other people for their affairs find that those affairs consume their own household. So that's one meaning of this hadith. The second meaning, which is the main meaning, is ilzam baytak. Like, learn to stay home a bit. Learn to be by yourself. Learn to enjoy seclusion. Learn to be introspective and reflective and in a state of contemplation and a state of remembrance. Because if you're talking about everybody else and you're busying yourself with everybody else's stuff, that is disaster waiting to happen. Even if you escape 9 times out of 10, that one disaster you fall into could lead to a much greater musibah for you on the Day of Judgment. So learn to enjoy your house. And this is something that requires some balance. Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala mentions that the believer, when they think of, when they're leaving their home, they leave and they weigh every time they step out of their home a maslaha diniya or a maslaha dunyawiyya. Something that is good for me and my religion, or something that's good for my worldly affairs. Me, I'm going out because this is, how can I actually justify, of course back then you don't have the world of social media, I'm stepping out of my house. Why am I stepping out of my house? What's the benefit of me leaving my house right now and going out? So what's the religious benefit, or what's the worldly benefit? Am I going to work? Am I going to benefit myself? Am I going to increase myself in risk and sustenance? Or am I wasting my time and wasting my good deeds in the process as well? So why am I leaving my house? The opposite extreme though, some people use this hadith to stop coming to the masjid, or stop going to good things or doing good things. And the masjid is baytu kulli mu'min, as the Prophet ﷺ said. It's the home of every believer. And the Prophet ﷺ said, the gardens of dhikr, the gardens of remembrance and knowledge are gardens of paradise on this earth. You need to immerse yourself in those gardens. So some people use this and they disappear and they say, you know, I'm practicing some seclusion right now. And that's actually a form of self-delusion, because we need these places. We need these good gatherings and these good places and these volunteer opportunities and ways that we can do good for ourselves and do good for the world. وَلْيَسَعْكَ بَيْتُكَ does not discourage this in any way. وَلْيَسَعْكَ بَيْتُكَ means, you know, learn to actually enjoy being alone by yourself sometimes and not diving into a lot of these different things. And there's something very profound, and I hope inshallah you'll remember this, because it actually blew me away when I read it in the context of this hadith. The scholar said, if you look at the Prophet ﷺ, he never forgot his athkar, his remembrance, when he stepped out of his home. And what are those two athkar? Two phrases of remembrance, two athkar that the Prophet ﷺ always would say when he left his home. The first one, Bismillah, tawakkaltu ala Allah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. In the name of Allah, I depend upon Allah, la hawla wa la quwwata, tawakkaltu ala Allah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There's no power, no might except for that which is with Allah, with God. And what did the Prophet ﷺ say happens? The devil flees you. The angel calls out and says, Khudita wa kufita wa wukita. You're going to be guided for the day. You're going to be protected for the day from your enemy. You will be protected for the day for any type of harm that would come to you. Khudita wa kufita wa wukita. And this is one narration, but the other narration, listen very carefully, and I want you to try to practice this inshallah ta'ala. And I'll hold myself to it as well. Salama radiyallahu ta'ala anha says, ما خرج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من بيتي قط إلا رفع طرفه إلى السماء. I love the imagery here, and I actually just thought about it today. She said, every time the Prophet ﷺ left my house, and he never left my house except that he would do this, he'd look up to the sky. He'd look up to the sky. So let's try to practice this inshallah ta'ala. He'd look up to the sky and he would say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an adilla aw udal. أو أزل أو أزل أو أظلم أو أظلم أو أجهل أو يجهل علي. So profound. He would say, Oh Allah, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an adilla aw udal. Oh my Lord, I seek refuge in you from going astray or leading astray. Leading or going astray. Being astray or leading astray. Being led astray. أو أزل أو أزل. Or to slip or cause to slip or be made to slip. أو أظلم أو أظلم, or to oppress or to be oppressed. I don't want to be misguided, I don't want to fall, I don't want to oppress, and I don't want any of those things happening to me either. Or the Prophet ﷺ said, أو أجهل أو يجهل علي, or to do wrong or to have wrong done towards me. This is profound. Like, think about the intentionality of stepping out of your house every single day and looking up and saying this dua. I pray that we can practice it, maybe not every time, but at least we can start bringing this in as a sunnah when you walk out of your home and you make the dua. Even if you're in your car, driving out of your garage, if you're coming out of a garage, say the dua and think about the implications of this dua. Like, I'm trying to leave my home today and I don't want to cause harm to anyone, nor do I want this harm to be caused towards me. So this is a profound way that the Prophet ﷺ used to engage every single time he walks out of his home, walks into the world. I don't want to harm, be misguided, nor do I want those things to happen to me. So, وَلْيَسَعْكَ بَيْتُكَ, and obviously, if